What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking on the video. Today I have a Carian Impaler build I want to show you guys, and I absolutely love it. I've had so much fun playing with this build. It is a fantastic combination of using great swords and then also using your magic Carian swords as well to build an overall really balanced magic slash strength build. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get right into it. There are two weapons we're going to be using here for this build. One is going to be a sword, the other is going to be a staff, but let's look at the sword first. We're going to be using the Knight's Greatsword. Now, the only reason I really chose this sword is because I heard it was a very balanced weapon, and I've never put together a build with it, nor have I really played with it that much in-game in all of my playthroughs. This sword is actually really fun to use. It has a very unique movement set, and it also does a good amount of damage, especially with the Ash of War that we have on it. Now, looking a little bit closer at this weapon, it's going to have a physical attack of 265 plus 26, and a magic attack of 265 plus 179 at plus 24. I don't have enough stones to get this all the way to plus 25, but it seems to be killing everything NPC-wise in 1 or 2 hits, which is really nice. It has a strength scaling of E, a dex scaling of E, and an intellect scaling of C, and that's only because we've put Carian Grandeur on this weapon, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. If you use a quality or a heavy Ash of War, you're going to get more out of this weapon damage-wise, but I really enjoy the magic damage that we get out of this with Carian Grandeur because you are going to be literally crushing bosses with this build. The attributes required to use this weapon are 16 strength and 12 dexterity, so it is a weapon that you can use decently early within the game if you choose to do so, and you can get this weapon from knights around the different areas that you're going to be running through in the lands between. The Godric Knights can drop it in Limgrave, the Koku Knights can drop it in Liurnia of the Lakes, the Mausoleum Knights can drop it, so there's just a ton of different knights in the lands between that can drop this weapon for you if you want to go out and farm it yourself. Now let's talk about Carian Grandeur, because we are sacrificing a lot of strength scaling with this weapon in order to put this Ash of War on to create this magic greatsword build. Now, Carian Grandeur is going to have a 3-step charge that is going to slice downward at your enemies, causing massive damage. It can also be used very quickly with a single charge if you find yourself in a bind. The Ash of War Carian Grandeur is going to cost 26 FP, and this is also chargeable, which is going to really go well with some of the talismans that we've put together. Out of all of the Carian Ash of Wars, this Ash of War does hit the hardest, which is why I chose this to be on our weapon. Moving on to the Carian Glintstone Staff, we are going to be using this weapon at plus 24. Once again, the same story with the stones. I don't have enough ancient dragon stones to make this plus 25, but it already has an intellect scaling of S and a strength scaling of D, and its sorcery scaling right now is at 289 for me. The reason that I'm using this is going to boost Carian Sword sorceries, which are all we're using for this build, by 15%. So that's going to give us a really nice damage boost as we continue on through the game, attacking enemies and bosses. Its attribute requirements are strength 6, intellect 24, and dexterity 8, so as long as you have a decent amount of intellect, I'm pretty positive you can use this weapon in any starting class that you choose. You can find this weapon located on a corpse in the Carian Study Hall right before the second lift in the Liurnia of the Lakes. Moving on into our armor, we are going for more of a battle mage type situation here. So I have the Hayama Glintstone Crown, which is going to give us plus 2 strength and plus 2 intelligence, so it's going to add to our strength intelligence build, giving us a little bit more damage in those areas. I also have the Carian Knight Armor, I have the Carian Knight Gauntlets, and I have the Scaled Greaves. All this is going to wrap you up in 47 poise, so not quite the 51 poise you need to be completely unstaggerable, but it is going to give you enough so that you're not constantly knocked out of spells, and with Carian Grandeur, you are going to get hyper armor as well when you use that, so it works out overall for what we need for this build. Now, as far as our talismans go, I put together the talismans that I've had the most fun with and that made the most sense to me. There are a few that you can switch out if you want to do more damage than I currently have here, so I will let you guys know what those are as we continue into the talismans. The first talisman we have here is the Graven Mask Talisman. This is going to greatly raise the potency by sorceries by giving us a plus 8% damage boost to our sorceries. This is also going to stack with the Carian Glintstone Staff in giving us that really beefy sorcery damage that we need. This is a later game talisman if you want to go find it. It's going to be found atop a chest in Albinauric Rise in the east of the consecrated snowfields. The next talisman we have up here is the Godfrey Icon. Now, this is going to enhance your charge skills and spells. Now, Carian Grandeur is a massively charged spell. Carian Piercer is also a really awesome charge spell, so this just makes sense for us to use because we are going to be getting a 15% damage to charge spells and skills, which is also going to stack with everything else that we currently have so far. So the Godfrey Icon is definitely the way to go here, and this is 100% one of the talismans you should not switch out if you're looking to switch out 1 or 2 of these talismans. The next talisman we have up is the Warrior Jar Shard. Now, this is going to boost the attack power of your skills by 10%. Now, some of you may be asking yourself, why aren't you using the Shard of Alexander? It's quite simple. I don't have it on this playthrough, so I went ahead and killed Alexander so I could grab this Warrior Jar Shard to get that extra power power boost to our skills. All of this is going to stack damage-wise, making Carian Grandeur hit incredibly hard, so that's why we chose the Warrior Jar Shard. If you do have the Shard of Alexander, definitely put that here, but for our next talisman, I do think there are some things that you could swap out depending on your playstyle and you want out of this build. So let's move into our fourth talisman, the Carian Filigree Crest. This is going to lower FP cost consumed by your skills by 15%. So because we are using Carian Grandeur an awful lot, it's nice because we don't have a ton of mind on this class that we are going to be lowering that cost we need to use it. I definitely like playing this way. I enjoy using this talisman in this slot, but if you do want to swap this out, you can swap this out for the Graven School talisman, which is going to raise the potency of your sorceries, and it will also stack with the Graven Mass talisman, giving you a total of 12% damage on your sorceries. But if you want the less FP cost, then the Carian Filigree Crest is the way to go. Another talisman that you could use in this place just to get an incredibly large damage boost is going to be the Magic Scorpion Charm, because that's going to give you a 12% damage increase, but it's also going to increase the damage you take by 10%. So there's a little give and take there, but it will make you do a lot more damage. I just don't have it on this character, and it wasn't something that I wanted to do in terms of taking more damage. Now for our Flask of Wondrous Physic, because we have an Intelligence Strength build, I have the Intelligence Crystal tier, which is going to temporarily boost our intelligence by 10, which is super nice, because then our intelligence is going to be 72, and that's only going to allow us to do way more damage, which is why I chose this Crystal Knot tier. And for the second tier in our flask, I'm using the Magic Shrouding Crack tier, which is just going to be a giant damage boost of 20% damage to your magic attacks. So everything we do after we drink this flask is pretty much going to get a 20% damage increase, and that's going to stack with everything else we currently have wrapped up in this build to allow you to do the most damage possible, in my opinion. If you're looking for the Intelligence Knot Crystal tier in-game, it's going to be south of the Carian Manor, sitting on top of a stone pedestal, surrounded by a few of those hand monsters, to the north of the Road of the Manor Site of Grace. And if you're looking for the Magic Shrouding Crack tier, it's going to be dropped by the Erd Tree Avatar, by the Minor Erd Tree, in the northeast section of Liurnia of the Lakes. And last but not least, guys, let's go over our sorceries. So we are going to be using Carian Piercer and Carian Greatsword. The reason I'm only using 2 sorceries with this build is because A, I wanted it to kind of match up with our Greatsword that we're wielding, so it looks like we're just imbuing our Greatsword and hitting with these massive blades. And then the other thing was, I didn't want to have another build that just had Carian Slicer in it that you would spam to death and get every boss down with that one spell. I think this puts together a playstyle that is really unique in terms of you can't get too close because you can't charge up your spells, but if you're too far away, you can't hit people. So there's a really fun middle ground to play there. It's a nice little mechanic that I've figured out with this build. Carian Greatsword is going to perform a slash horizontally, which is going to attack multiple enemies, and then Carian Piercer is a charged magical greatsword that you can charge up 3 times and thrust right into your enemies, and it does a really good chunk of damage. So those were the reasons that I chose these spells. You can equip whatever spells you want in here if you want to use some different form of RP, but overall, I'm really happy with how this build came out, and I really think it is a lot of fun. Really quickly before the video ends, I'm going to put the stats right here on the screen for what I'm currently using so you can match up your stats to mine if you want to use this build, and I'm also going to have a breakdown of stats for 50, 100, and 150 so you guys can level into this build as well. And that's going to be it for the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I absolutely loved making it, and I really enjoyed this build. I will be making more videos every Monday and Friday, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that bell notification so you can know when I'm making more content. I appreciate the heck out of you guys, and as always, stay safe, enjoy the game. I'll see you in the next one.